one of the rainiest summer seasons in recent years, and the federal government has finally heard Governor Mike Pence's calls for help. The Lakeshore's Hillary Powell shows how a disaster declaration is welcome news for flood-affected farmers.
It's sunny for more than one reason in Crown Point. Funds have arrived for the record rainy days farmers had in the region this season.
People that aren't farmers think rain makes grain, which it does, but when we have this excess that we had in June and July, the ground just can't handle it. Most farmers in this area have been hurt by the water.
Wednesday, the U.S. Department of Agriculture gave Indiana Governor Mike Pence the secretarial disaster declaration he wanted. Farmers in 53 of the state's 92 counties can apply for Farm Service Agency emergency loans. That means cash for crops ruined in the state's second wettest June and July on record.
We have actually lost large acres. We are caretakers of our land.
At the Lake County Fair this week, the talk at the Indiana Farm Bureau booth is about recovering from floodwaters that stunted crops.
A very big waste, and you have a lot of money invested in that area in an acre of corn or soybeans, and if you get no return, it is a sad situation.
The farmers and ranchers applying for these loans really could use the help. To be eligible, they had to have lost at least 30% of their crop production for the year. That's like a third of this screen multiplied.
We have about 3,000 acres of corn. We estimate that we have lost a third of that.
Hayden farms in Shelby in unincorporated Lake County and says the low-interest loans will help her and other families fully dependent on revenue from crops for living expenses.
There is no off-the-farm job, so that is what we live on.
The loans can go toward replacing property, refinancing debt, and reorganizing farm operations, and getting perhaps only one thing flowing again, normal production. In Crown Point, Hillary Powell, Lakeshore Report.
Applications for emergency loans must be received within 8 months of the county's designation date. For more information, log on to lakeshorepublicmedia.org for a link to your local FSA office and a list of eligible counties. Some Indiana low-income students will be getting some high-impact help from the federal government. The U.S. Education Department is granting more than $28 million to help students cover the cost of advanced placement, or AP tests. The state of Indiana will be awarded a little over $300,000 of that money. It's hoped that the grant, which should lower the cost of most AP tests to around $12, will encourage students to take advanced placement tests and obtain college credit for high school courses, reducing the time and cost required to complete a post-secondary degree. John King, Department of Education Senior Advisor, says the awards are a smart investment in equity and a way to level the playing field in order to allow more students to access the critical thinking and reasoning skills taught in AP courses. Senator Joe Donnelly briefly exchanged his white collar for a blue one Tuesday, hitting a Northwest Indiana Assembly line as a part of his Donnelly Days series of events. The senator has made it his mission to try to understand the concerns of Hoosier workers by setting aside a few Donnelly Days to actually work beside them. This week, Donnelly traveled to Hammond, where he took his place on the metal welding assembly line at Tri-State Industries. The senator operated a welding robot, helped package a welding trailer, and shadowed a worker operating a high-definition plasma cutter. Earlier this week, Senator Donnelly worked on a power tool assembly line and shadowed workers on a diabetes strip cutting machine at companies in Greenfield and Indianapolis. An Illinois business growing its operations across state lines will be bringing around 500 jobs to Northwest Indiana. Hoist lift truck has announced that it will purchase, renovate, and equip an approximately 550,000 square foot building in East Chicago, expanding the company's Bedford Park, Illinois operations. The expansion will create hundreds of new jobs in Indiana this year, with additional jobs in the coming years, totaling about 500 jobs by 2022. Hoist lift truck will receive financial incentives and tax credits for relocating in Northwest Indiana, but cannot claim them until jobs are actually created. East Chicago Mayor Anthony Copeland says that bringing jobs and investment to East Chicago is a priority, and that the continued revitalization of the city's industrial core is an important move in the right direction. Pepsi Bottling Company of Munster did its bit this week out at the Lake County Fair, helping to raise money for the Boys and Girls Club of Northwest Indiana. For one day only, people were invited to bring in as many aluminum cans as they could carry. For each 150 cans, fair guests got a free half-day pass for all the rides on the Midway. The aluminum cans are going to be recycled, and the money that is raised will be donated to the Boys and Girls Club of Northwest Indiana. It's just one way Pepsi Bottling is giving back to the community.
We've partnered up with them because they're pretty good with helping us. So like all these kids that are here today are kids that are members of the Boys and Girls Club. This group here is out of Cedar Lake, but we've had Crown Point, Munster, Gary, all the different branches that's contributed over the past few years.
Company officials say they support the Boys and Girls Club because of its work to keep kids off the street and to provide those kids with a safe, healthy environment. Another organization working to educate and enrich the lives of young people is making a big impression at this week's Lake County Fair. Plus, Michael Puente explores a decades-old event that left a lasting impression on one Northwest Indiana town. Those stories just ahead on Lakeshore Report.
Lakeshore Report wants to hear from you. Send your thoughts, concerns, questions, and story ideas to tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. You can also reach us on Facebook and Twitter at Lakeshore Report. Make sure to tweet us using the hashtag NWIPride and you may see your comments on air. Lakeshore Report, providing you region-focused content.
With an alumni of about 25 million and a track record of building leaders, 4-H is about more than teaching kids about agriculture. Much more. The organization can brag about some significant statistics. 4-Hers are 4 times more likely to make contributions to their communities, 2 times more likely to be civically active, and 2 times more likely to participate in science, engineering, and computer technology programs. Stephen Lattimore caught up with some 4-Hers out at the Lake County Fair to see what it's all about.
According to 4-H, back in the late 1800s, researchers found they had a hard time getting adults to latch on to new technologies in agriculture. So they decided to teach the young people, and maybe they would introduce those techniques to the adults. Well, it worked, and that's how 4-H was born. At the Lake County, Indiana Fair, you don't have to convince these 4-H students to get excited about farming. 4-H is the nation's largest youth development organization in the U.S. There are 6 million young people involved.
You don't have to live on a farm, to understand where the milk comes from, where the vegetables come from, where the beef that goes on your dinner table. This is what some of the things that kids are learning.
Mickey Nieces raises rabbits. She says the concept is simple. No farmers, no food.
The 4-H helps to get the kids involved, and especially dairy. If the kids aren't involved in the dairy, then you're going to lose your dairy farmers for the future, so you won't have the milk that you do now. 9-year-old Anna Moser raises chickens. She's learned about responsibility and the value of hard work. Plus, it's fun.
The best part I like are holding and showing the birds. You get slapped in the face. I got a scratch right here from judging, but it really is worth it.
You learn a lot about just that life has its ups and downs, and you kind of got to make the best of it and go with the flow.
Tristan Hand's father signed him up for 4-H, and he was hooked immediately. He says he's learned things here that will help him in the future.
To me, it's changed everything about me, because if it wasn't for 4-H, I'd just be stuck on the couch doing nothing. There's many opportunities through 4-H, and you can eventually get scholarships to pursue higher education.
Sonia Oliveira is from the East Chicago chapter of 4-H. Their club focuses on robotics and other things.
Probably became more of a people person. I've got more along with more people than before. I was very shy. I wouldn't be doing this right now. I would not probably say a word.
It's teaching these children that there's other ways in life. There's other opportunities in life where they can take, and gives them a hope to go to college, and but some of them didn't even know they could do that. Here's some interesting information about who used to be a member of 4-H. They include former President Carter, his wife Rosalind Carter, his Vice President Walter Mondale, and former Vice President Al Gore. Also, Julia Roberts and Nancy Grace. Impressive list. They must be doing something right. At the Lake County Fair, Stephen Lattimore, Lakeshore Report.
To find out how to get involved in 4-H yourself, go to www.joinindiana4h.org. More than half a century ago, a series of explosions shattered the early morning quiet of one northwest Indiana town. The explosions and subsequent fires at Standard Oil's Whiting's facility stand as one of the worst American refinery accidents of the 20th century. Our own Michael Puente sat down with a local historian to talk about how the town will commemorate the anniversary of that tragic day.
Thank you, Christian. Well, August 27th will mark the 60th anniversary of the explosion at the Standard Oil Refinery in Whiting. It was certainly an event that a lot of people will never forget. The Whiting-Robertsdale Historical Society will present a video on the explosion this coming August 27th. Joining me to talk about this new video is John Ramovich of the Whiting-Robertsdale Historical Society. John, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Well, John, what are your earlier memories of this explosion?
Well, actually, the explosion is probably the first thing in my life that I remember. I was about 2 years old, and I remember my mother holding me inside the house. We looked out the window, and the sky was red, the window was hot, and I think the reason I remember is she was afraid that it might blow up.
Well, what are we going to see on this video? Are these new interviews, historical videos of film, or what are we going to see?
It's a mix of those things. We interviewed about 34 people in Whiting on video end of last year, and we've pulled together a bunch of pictures that the Historical Society has, as well as a little bit of video, and we put it together to tell the story of what happened on that day 60 years ago.
And what are some of the commonalities of this video, of the histories where people, were they young kids, probably young kids at the time, since it's been already 60 years ago?
They range. There are some people who were in their 20s at the time. There are some people who were just about 8 years old at the time. So we have the perspective of those who were children and the perspective of those who were adults already.
Now, how long did this video take to produce? I mean, 35 people to interview, that must take a long time.
Well, plus we're volunteers, so it wasn't a full-time job, but we pulled it together in about a year.
And then, so about the last year, you're putting this video together?
Yes, we transcribed all the interviews. We went through them, picked out clips that we wanted to use, and found pictures that fit in. We even found some music from 1895 to celebrate the opening of the neighborhood that got destroyed by the explosion, which was called Stiglitz Park. And when it opened in 1895, they had special music, so it was kind of exciting doing the research too.
Well, of these videos, of these interviews, what surprises you the most? Did any one story stand out for you?
No, because they were all so different. What surprised me the most was the variety of viewpoints that people had. We interviewed people who were working in the plant at the time, were putting out the fire. We interviewed somebody who had his leg cut off by the blast, by the explosion and the debris which fell. We had people who performed as nurses. We had people who were National Guardsmen. So we had all kinds of perspectives of people. So I guess what surprised me was the variety.
And this video is going to be shown on August 27th at the Whiting Library?
At the Whiting High School, actually.
Okay.
In the auditorium at 7 o'clock on Thursday, August 27th.
What do you hope people take away from this video?
I think probably for me, the best thing to learn is that when a community has a disaster like this, it was interesting to me the way everybody pulled together. All the differences that we may have, they disappear when we have a common disaster. We saw it in 9/11. I'm sure they saw it at Pearl Harbor. We saw it in Whiting on August 27th, 1955.
Well, John Morovich is with the Whiting-Robertsdale Historical Society. They're going to be presenting a video on August 27th on the 60th anniversary of the Standard Oil Refinery explosion. John, thank you for being here on Lakeshore Report.
Thank you for having me.
It's time for The Times, our exclusive sneak preview of some of the top stories in this Sunday's Northwest Indiana Times. Occasionally, we'll talk to the reporters behind some of those stories in the state's second largest newspaper. This week, Times staff writer Joseph Peet shows how one local university is using innovative research to put itself at the forefront of leading-edge technology.
Yes, this Sunday I worked on an article about Purdue becoming tied for 16th worldwide in the number of patents they've secured, moving up from 27th last year. They've secured an impressive 93 patents, which outpaces many Ivy League schools like Harvard, Dartmouth, Cornell. They've really stepped up their patent game, including throughout the system, including here at Purdue Cal, where I highlight some of the recent patents they've secured. One that would help the steel industry by letting them source it with Indiana coal. One team there at Purdue Cal has recently applied for a patent that would clean up water while generating electricity, heat, and hydrogen. So they've achieved, throughout their research areas, they've achieved patents in a number of areas: computer science, IT, biomedicine. A lot of it is science and technology. Part of the reason they excel is their focus on those areas. They have had a record number of startups for the last 2 years. Last year they had 40 startups that have attracted $25 million in capital, created 75 new jobs, and kind of helping move the Indiana economy, but beyond its like traditional reliance on manufacturing and agriculture, and to some of the stuff that's attracting more excitement and attention. It's mostly the professors, and the professors I've spoken with from Purdue Cal, they've been pretty grateful to the system, mostly because of time that's granted to pursue the research interests. That's the big driver behind a lot of this, but the university has also helped in helping them secure funding, like federal energy grants and things of that nature, but then also helping them kind of get their discoveries to market, like filing the paperwork they need, getting patents and so forth. It could be potentially very promising for Northwest Indiana. Innovation has been the big driver nationally, economically for the past couple decades. And as good as the steel industry and heavy manufacturing has been to us over the years, like everyone else, we need to kind of try and evolve the economy, you're only really going to see rapid growth through startups that might be spun off through this type of research.
For more information about this story, check out this Sunday's Times or log on to www.nwitimes.com. Twice a month, Lakeshore Report teams up with the Society of Innovators of Northwest Indiana, an Ivy Tech Community College initiative, to showcase some of the most forward-thinking ideas the region has to offer. A few years ago, a local man, Danny Norris, collapsed while jogging at the Indiana Dunes State Park. A friend called 911, but didn't have an address within the park to give the operator, delaying the arrival of first responders. The Norris died almost instantly. The tragedy got retired engineer William Pauley thinking, when seconds matter, how can we make sure first responders can locate you in such a huge place without a traditional address?
We didn't invent anything new. We took two technologies and put them together, the GPS technology and the technology of 911. It resulted from an incident where a man died of a heart attack out here. And I got an emergency. I think my friend's having a heart attack. The operator said, "Give me your address, sir." He said, "I am at the Indiana Dunes State Park." "Well, what's the address?" "I don't know the address. It's the Indiana Dunes State Park." "No, sir, I need an address." 911 couldn't figure out what the location was to tell the first responders. Had seconds or a few minutes been really important, it would have been crucial. I said, "That's horrible. Let's get a meeting with park management and see if we can resolve this so it doesn't happen again." We wanted to take a spot and be able to put an address to it, because 911 needs an address to send someone to. And we put this sign up here, and he came with his instrument, his GPS instrument, aimed it up at the satellite, said, "Okay, I've recorded this spot. Someone will be able to get to this spot if an emergency occurs." But there are other benefits to having it. One, if someone experiences vandalism, or if someone were approached in an unseemly manner, those signs around might get them be a preventative. But I think innovation is not being a scientific breakthrough like a patent or a new drug or a new engineering marvel. I think it's more of combining things that are already around us and looking at it from a different point of view. So I take no credit as inventing all this stuff. I'm just putting this problem together with these solutions.
For more information about the Society of Innovators, visit www.nwisoi.org. And don't forget, for more information on any of our stories, you can go to lakeshorepublicmedia.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time on Lakeshore Report.
Joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Carol Draska, Crown Point City Council person.
Yes.
And friend of the arts.
Yes.
Yes. Carol, welcome to Eye on the Arts. It's been a long time since we've had you here.
It has, John, but glad to be back.
Good. Well, we were thinking that perhaps the last time you were here was to talk about the Crown Point Bulldogs.
That's exactly, and that was 10 years ago, and we had 55 bulldogs invade our downtown area.
And this year, you've brought something new in the arts to the square.
We have 10 bronze colorized sculptures of the common man doing common things. And Seward Johnson is the artist. He's 83 now, and he shows nationally and internationally, and he's been around for quite a while.
83 years, I hear.
83 years, at least.
So Seward Johnson he specializes in these very lifelike figures, and you have them and I know outside the Four Seasons Hotel in Chicago, there's that man with an umbrella hailing a cab, and that's been there for a long time now. That one's not colorized though. I like these colorized ones.
Yeah, the colorized is great. It gives it more of a human quality, and many of our sculptures have tricked people. And I think that's the beauty of his sculptures is they make us laugh at ourselves doing common things, everyday things, but it catches off guard because you think that they're real. And so we've had a lot of really good feedback on that.
So you got sponsors to help pay for this.
We have 12 sponsors, a sponsor for each one, and of course the city of Crown Point is underwriting some of the project, but most of the project is all paid for by our sponsors. So it's been a great sponsorship to have the city involved with private, and that's always a good combination. And when you can introduce art and maintain interactive art in your town, I think that's just the best.
I do too. And you have had a lot of people coming into town to see the sculptures.
Right. One of the main goals was to increase our downtown foot traffic, which it has exceeded, but we've had even more excitement when we have residents and their family and just other people from out of town that have heard about the exhibit are coming and walking downtown. And we have a photo contest that you can submit your photo online, and we have a scavenger hunt that you can pick up also online, and fill out the form, match the clues to the sculpture, and turn in your form to the library, and we'll be having prizes for those. So that's made it really interactive with the people as
So
they
the
view
photo
it.
contest is for people, they're taking selfies with the sculptures?
Yes, selfies with the sculptures. We've had some real clever ideas. The umbrella guy, gentleman, we've had people with umbrellas come pouring Morton salt. I've seen that photograph. So just kind of clever ideas with the sculptures.
Yeah, well, I like the window washer man. I like the lady standing on the corner with her many packages.
Yes.
And the whole thing is just so engaging. Yeah, I've been involved with the Valparaiso Art Committee's sculpture thing that they've done for a couple of years now. But I like these lifelike ones because they're something that people can relate to so easily.
Yes, and I think the children are loving it. And I just like to go downtown once or twice a week, grab a bench, and then I just sit and watch the interactive with the people, and I get as much joy out of that as the sculptures.
Well, good. It's good that you brought this to Crown Point.
Thank you.
And I hope you do it every year now.
I'm hoping
now
for
everybody's
next summer
expecting
to do
it.
something. Yes,
Okay.
next summer we'll be doing something.
Okay, good. Thanks, Carol, for being here, and thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts. Eye on the Arts is made possible in part by South Shore Arts, the Indiana Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency.